how you decide to cover a story, who gets included, which sound bites you choose. It kind of like there's endless choose your own adventure moments, I guess, when pursuing any given story. So, sometimes you're going to have disagreements.
Hello and welcome to Here in LA, Palms Edition. Today we chat with Spectrum News 1's morning anchor, Kate Cagle. Kate is a TV journalist, a USC Trojan, a mother, and a wife. She was kind enough to allow us into her beautiful home in Palms, where we talked about the walkability of her hood, what it was like to be handcuffed and detained while on air at Echo Park Lake, and what it took to get one of the tattoo artists who tattooed up deputies of the LA Sheriff's Department on the air. Kate is a fantastic broadcaster, perfect on social media, and just as kind in person. Plus, she tells us if you don't have Spectrum cable, but you get your internet through Spectrum, you'll be able to see her and her newscast via an app for free. So let's welcome Kate Cagle. Hey everybody, I am here in Palms with Kate Cagle.
Hi,
Hey.
Hello. You're clapping and tails are wagging.
We're here with Kate, who is an anchor and reporter at Spectrum 1 Cable, which if you don't have Spectrum, you don't get to see a lot of your stuff. But if you follow Kate, on Twitter, you actually do put a lot of your what do you call episodes? What do you call them? Reports?
Yeah, stories. Yeah, stories.
Out on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle?
At Kate Cagle. So Katecagle.
Okay. And I'll just cut to the chase.
Although I think we're supposed to call it X.
Are you going to be Xing? I'm not going to be Xing.
We just got updated style guidelines today, so we're Xing.
I put a tweet out the other day on Here in LA that said, you can call it what we want. We still call it the Fabulous Forum. We still call it the Fox Hills Mall. We still call it
the Staples.
Right. So,
okay. I'm picking up what you're putting down. It's still twitter.com to go to the website. I'm just saying.
Right. Because Microsoft owns X.com, right?
I think there's going to be a lot of issues. Yeah. I saw one tweet and they were showing shortcuts on their browser and they had like 4 X's in a row. And they're like, 3 of these are porn sites and 1 is Twitter.
Oh my God.
So I don't know how it's going to pan out. Maybe we'll be back to Twitter by the time this airs.
So Kate, one of the reasons I'm so happy to be here with you today is you are one of the stars of LA broadcast journalism, in part because I feel like you take on some topics that the traditional places don't, or if they do, they kind of gloss over it. And I'm trying to be respectful to them because I realize they have their own agenda and they've got their own bosses above them that might stop them from doing the things that you're able to do. I'll give you an example. I saw you get arrested at Echo Park Lake. I saw you interview a tattooist of the sheriff deputies who put quote unquote gang tattoos on people, on deputies. Those are kind of punk rock stories that are very edgy that I didn't see Paul Majors do back in the day. I didn't see, you know what I'm saying? But I see it with you. And I think that's why you have fans and admirers online of your work.
Well, it's all very kind of you to say. That's very sweet. And thank you for noticing, because I do try to be intentional about the stories that I pick and go places where other people aren't going. And if I do see a story that I think is being covered really well by another outlet, then I'm like, great, they can own that. Let me go find something else to work on. So thank you.
We're going to do, how about we do this interview like this, top down, like they taught us with journalism.
Okay, great.
I think you being arrested at Echo Park was super dramatic because we had heard about people like Lex from LA Taco get arrested. And Lex, I guess I can understand because he's probably wearing like just a t-shirt and an LA Taco hat, or maybe not even an LA Taco hat. You're like, okay, I can see where the police may not think that he's a journalist. But at Echo Park Lake, you're sitting there with a cameraman.
Two
Cameramen.
Yes, with live backpacks on, professional equipment, my press pass hanging around my neck, the whole shebang.
And you're pointing to your crew saying, I'm on right now. You can't arrest me right now, or something along those lines. And they still took you away. Were you shocked that this was happening to you?
Oh, the entire experience, I'd never been through anything like that. It was a complete accident. And I really don't cover protests that much, right? I cover issues. But that night we were just really intent on following through. It was because everyone was waiting for that midnight deadline, right? When the park was officially going to be closed to see what was going to happen. So we thought it was really important to be there. But I had covered the protests in 2020, and very similar situation with a crew, with a backpack. We were alive. We were out in places where mass arrests were happening, where curfews had been called, and we didn't have any issues. I mean, in fact, I interviewed Chief Moore himself, and he was wearing like a helmet, and there were flashbangs going off, and there was no question about whether or not the press could do their job. So that entire night was shocking to a lot of people.
What happened with you? You weren't officially arrested, were you? You were just detained? Is that how it went?
I was detained in what protesters call the Cagle, right? So basically they had called this unlawful assembly, which I didn't even hear because I was actually in my car editing the story that was going to run on TV. And then I got a text from the newsroom that said, hey, they declared an unlawful assembly where you are. And I was working with two photographers, and it was about time for our live shot. And I kind of wanted to get out just to be like, what is going on? Because I could hear things were getting rowdier. And I was actually just walking over, and I had told the two men I was working with, like, hey, if you guys feel uncomfortable, like, you don't have to stay. Like, you can come sit with me in the car. But they felt fine. In fact, I love this photographer, Martin, who, it's so great. He's on staff now. But he had covered Middle East conflict, right? And I remember after we were detained, we're kind of getting chewed out by the cops. And they're like, why didn't you leave? And Martin goes, I didn't realize they arrested journalists in this country. Yes. And he was just like dumbfounded that it had happened. He's like, I've covered warfare. These are like fireworks and flashlights. Like, what are you guys reacting to even? I mean, it was an absurd situation and a complete accident. And I had all the feelings about it at the time. It was really, honestly, it was really emotional for me because it just... and as you point out, like, I have an immense amount of privilege, and it was, I don't know how to describe it other than the fact it was like a very formative experience. And some of my contacts in LAPD, like, they were mad at me. And, yeah, it was crazy.
I have a feeling, I mean, I'll put it this way. I like to pretend that the police know the same things about the First Amendment the journalists do. And that when they stop journalists from doing their jobs, that I want to believe it's only because it's the order from above. But that one seemed really hard for me because you're clearly doing your job. You're not an activist. You don't have an ACAB hat like some of my guests have had. You know, you're TV journalists. I've never seen Tom Brokaw be arrested for being on the scene of something. Was that some of the feelings that you were having when you talk about the emotions that you had that day?
Yeah, and I just 2 weeks before that happened, those people you're describing, I was getting pushback from them on Twitter because I had done a sit down with Chief Moore. Like, I had been working with the department in many ways and trying to cover them. So, yeah, I've been a journalist a long time, for more than 10 years. I've worked with lots of different agencies, different departments, PIOs, different cops, and I had just never experienced what I experienced that night. And it was just even so out of line with what I had experienced in 2020 that I just never saw it coming.
So when they took you away, did they put you on a school bus? Did they handcuff you?
Very briefly.
You were handcuffed?
I was zip tied, and the very nice female officer asked me how I would like my hands placed behind my back. And I said, I don't know. I've never been handcuffed before. And she said, well, people find the backwards prayer position the most comfortable. So I did that. But I think that was maybe not even a minute before they, I think, realized what happened and cut me out. Because I had been texting the head PIO of LAPD. I mean, I had told him where I was. Like, hey, I'm stuck in this kettle. Like, can you please tell them to let me out? I'm with my crew. You know, we just want to go home. And they were like, no, you're staying.
Oh, my God. Because you're a bad person because you were actually at the scene as it's going down. Instead of far away where they had set up a media staging area, correct?
I mean, those are your words, not mine.
Well, let me ask you this, because I wasn't there. Was it clear where the media was, quote unquote, supposed to be at that midnight hour?
There was a media staging area, and I had been there earlier in the day, but there was no PIO there when I was there who was giving information. You couldn't see inside the park. You couldn't see where the protest was happening. And how I ended up on Lemoyne was that there had been a vigil there earlier, and that's where all the protesters were. So I interviewed a protester, Jed Parriott, who'd been a big part of the action. And then, like I said, that's where my car was parked. So I was putting the piece together, and the protest was happening just right down the street. So we were like, oh, we'll just go live from here. I'd never had any issues before.
Before we get into the other story that I really like that you did, let's talk about social media for a second. Because I think you're very good and you're very active on social media. And I don't think that people realize when they yell at journalists on Twitter or whatever, that a lot of times you read it, and sometimes you might be shocked at what they're saying. So here you are again doing your job, and part of your job is to talk to the chief of police,
Right?
Duh, right? And yet there are people who are following you who seemed upset that you're actually having an honest conversation with the chief.
I mean, and that's fine. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I'm on social media is I don't want people to feel like I'm averse to criticism. I have a huge platform. I think the media needs more criticism. In fact, I feel like LA is sorely lacking an actual news critic who follows the way, reports on how stories are being covered in the narrative. We don't get a lot of that in LA. So if people individually want to be that person and give me their, 2 cents or 50 tweets on my story, I welcome that. I think all journalists should welcome that, especially if you have a big platform. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of fun just to see what people are saying. And, I'll just say this. No one grades harder than the internet. So when you're going to post a story later, it's like batting the hatches. You got to cross every T, dot every I, because they're going to find that one mistake.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way that it should be. I'm not afraid of that. What I don't like is when people attack the subjects of my story, because particularly around homelessness, we need to hear these stories about how people got to where they are, the challenges that they're experiencing trying to get back up on their feet. They're not easy things to talk about. It's very stigmatizing. If you're going to speak publicly, that's a story that's going to live forever, maybe even once you get your life back on track. So I try to give people a lot of agency in the way they want their stories to be covered. And when people start attacking, and you're like in your anonymous account from your nice apartment or home, and you're attacking some unhoused person, my brain explodes. And that's who I end up blocking, because I mean, why would I let you come on my platform and do that?
I have a terrible problem where I will fight these people online.
I know, it's so tempting.
How do you not do it? Is it because, I mean, is it against the policy at work? It's also professional not to fight back, right?
Well, and I try to respond to everyone with kindness.
Mm-hmm.
I try, you got to be you bring your higher self, and I try to answer their questions or their points as best they can. Mm-hmm. And anytime I do get into an extended back and forth, I always end up regretting it, and it kind of ruins your whole day, and then you're stewing over it, and then you've given them this power over you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I try not to get sucked into it.
Okay. I'm gonna try to live by your example then, because it hurts me inside. And William from Film the Police, in our first interview with him, he said what he does hurts his sleeping. Even though he's yelling at the cops, and even though he knows he's doing the right thing, and many of us look at him as a hero, he says that he's still a human. It's emotional, and it hurts him, and he doesn't want to have these feelings inside. Speaking of emotion, I think it was today you tweeted out how you were emotional talking about one of the women who was arrested while her baby was being yanked away from her.
Oh, you're going to make me cry, Tony. I was crying. I was crying in the newsroom. I mean, so basically, there's a story out of Palmdale that last year deputies pulled over a car that was driving without headlights in the middle of the night. And in this car, they find 3 women who are holding their babies. And California law requires an infant to be in a rear-facing car seat. So they're attempting to take the children from these women, and the video is just excruciating to watch. These mothers pleading to keep their babies, to wait for family members to come with car seats. They're saying, well, you have car seats. Can you just give us your car seats? And, basically, and I keep coming back to this, the only reason that this was even a news story is because the deputy punched one of the women repeatedly in the face while she's holding her 10-week-old baby. And Karen Bass tweeted about this, the mayor of LA, Supervisor Janice Hahn, Sheriff Robert Luna himself is the one who released the video. The FBI is investigating, and I've watched too many of these videos of use of force incidents, and it was actually hearing from the mom's lawyers at the press conference talking about the 4 days she spent in jail while she was breastfeeding, and that the mom had told the deputies they didn't tell her where her baby was, and she really wanted her breast milk to be taken to the baby, and she claims that instead they made her basically pump and pour it down the toilet. And I breastfed I'm going to cry. I breastfed my son for a year, and it is emotional, arduous, painful. I mean, if you're breastfeeding and you don't regularly pump or feed your baby, it is I thought that pain was worse than childbirth, and I had an unmedicated birth. I'm telling you, wow. It's just so much sacrifice for the mom to do that. So it just really pulled at my heartstrings. And look, obviously, they should have had car seats for these kids, but then you just see how these situations just spiral and seem to make everything worse instead of making the situation for this 10-week-old boy better, right?
We love watching you on TV and following you on social, because the emotions that we feel, you also feel, and I think, I don't know if that's frowned upon in TV journalism, to be a human being. What do you think?
I don't know either. It's so hard. Spectrum, we do make a point of being unbiased. We want to show every perspective in a story. So when I covered the story today, I mean, I included comments from former Sheriff Villanueva defending the deputy's behavior. That deputy, by the way, has a GoFundMe that's raised almost $40,000. So there are a lot of people who, I guess support him and what he did. But I mean, you got to be a human being at the end of the day. Otherwise, we're all going to be replaced by robots. So isn't that kind of what I'm bringing to this job, right? Humanity.
Yes, you are. And courage, too. One of the pieces that you did that I really loved was you interviewed the tattoo artist who made some of the gang tattoos of some of the LASD sheriffs who allegedly are in these deputy gangs.
The Banditos tattoo.
There you go. Thank you. Was it hard to find this guy?
That was a newsroom tip. So someone had seen a story that I had done about the Banditos, and this tipster had been at an inking party years ago, not recently.
A deputy inking party?
At a deputy inking party. This person themselves not a deputy, but said there was a lot of people at the party, and they knew this artist, and they thought the whole thing was in poor taste, to say the least, and gave us the name of the artist, which then I confirmed with other deputies who knew. And I actually never talked about how we reported out this story because it was just me. And I was like, okay, well, now what? And I actually found the artist on Instagram and sent them a message. And from my account, which is kind of a mix of me and some of my reporting. So I was like, well, if he scrolls through and kind of sees what I'm working on, maybe he'll get an idea. But I just said, hey, I'd like to interview you about your work. And he thought it was about his, mainstream business. And so I went by myself to the tattoo shop, and I showed up with a very disarming box of donuts, which I would highly recommend if anyone's walking into an ambush interview. It's nice to bring the donuts. And I was kind of chatting while he was tattooing a client. Some people have noted that he was tattooing some cartoon. I can't remember what it's called. It's like a Cartoon Network cartoon on this guy's leg. And then I said, hey, can I talk to you about something else? But I want to talk to you like just us. So we went in the back room, and he's like mid-bite into a bear claw. When I show him the Banditos tattoo on my phone, I said, I want to ask you about this. And his eyes just popped out of his head. And he was like, where did you get that? Oh. And a lawyer had given it to me. I don't know where he initially got it. But yeah, I mean, he ended up telling me that he had tattooed it on like 40 deputies over the span of decades, that he wasn't the only artist who did it, that the tattoos were numbered, that they had to be earned, that it was a initiation ceremony when they got it. And what really struck me is that he said that he had been waiting for someone to walk through the door and ask him about it.
Little did he know it was going to be this blonde woman with donuts. Hello.
Who knew? Who knew? And he was really scared for the story to come out and that he was going to face retaliation. And I was like, look, just blame it on me. Just blame it on the donuts,
Well, but also good for him for having the courage to do that. Because I would imagine, and I think you would too, that a lot of sources would just tap out. As soon as you ask that question, they'd be like, I'm not talking about that. Those guys have guns.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea how it was all going to go down. So,
but he just kept going with your questions, right? He just answered honestly.
He didn't want to name names, which I wasn't trying to get anyone severely harmed. So that was fine. And then we had a lot of conversations in the newsroom about how much anonymity to give him. And that was a pretty heated debate. But at the end of the day, we decided to conceal his identity because we didn't want him to face severe retaliation. But we did think it was important to get the story out and legitimize what had been a rumor for so long.
Well, and I think that's Kate. That's where you had the scoop. Is the former sheriff was trying to pretend there's no gangs here, or if there had been, he'd already cleaned them up, and this tattoo thing was nonsense. People like People City Council continually would tweet, "Show us your tats, show us your tats," and I think some people on the fence might have believed the department that this was all just hype and a myth, that these deputies had gang tattoos of their gangs. But yours was the absolute proof. Like, there's no better source than the man who put them on them, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was just everything about the deputy gang issue. It can't stop shocking you because that's how you keep going. I don't want anyone to become numb to this story because, the craziest thing is that it's still happening. There's still new lawsuits coming through about deputy gangs in East LA and whether or not the Banditos, allegedly capped out at 100. So now there's a new group that's forming. But just from the very beginning, when I read that initial lawsuit that came out of East LA, this is, way back 2019 before anyone was talking about this. And, they were these deputies had come forward that this Banditos deputy gang was taxing other deputies, controlling scheduling, denying backup to people who didn't, play by their rules, that they were training deputies, that they were really like this shadow government over the station. And then that all exploded at the Kennedy Hall party where, these deputies allege Banditos choked out and beat up the deputies that weren't towing the line at the station. And I had just never heard anything like that. And that's when we got on the story. And, my former news director, Scott Warren, I remember him stopping me in the hallway after the first story ran and said, "Stay on this."
Good.
So, yeah.
Good. Because I read the paper and I love journalism and I love all the nuances. It seems to me that at the LA Times, they had a hard time actually calling it a gang. They would use the phrase clique because that's what the former sheriff used. Was there any of that debate going on at Spectrum? What do we call it? Can we call it a gang?
So I had been doing a lot of reporting on the Banditos, and I think everything kind of evolved because a lot depended on what the inspector general was calling it at the time. We just always tried to stick to the facts. So when Rand did a study on subgroups, we called them subgroups because that's what the study called them. That's what they asked deputies about. So we called them subgroups. But if the inspector general for Los Angeles County is saying deputy gang, I don't know why we would shy away from that. And now California's own penal code defines a law enforcement gang. So I don't know why we would shy away from using the terminology that's now on the books.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was driving me crazy because, they used to put, even up until recently, they were putting gang in quotation marks. And I was like, what are the quotes for?
Right. And what you just described sounds exactly like a gang. They bully people. They are violent towards people, and they
discriminate. Not everyone can join. That was the other thing was that, Villanueva would say this was station pride, but then also he was gonna get myself in trouble. But it's not station pride if not everyone gets one.
Right.
He also said he did not get a caveman tattoo. So did he not have station pride, or he wasn't invited?
Oh, excellent question. Okay. What was the result of that interview? Did I mean, I guess I want to think about like page views, ratings. Do you guys have metrics like that for Spectrum?
Not that they share with us. So, Spectrum News, we're behind a paywall. Like, primarily, we are a cable channel. And the idea behind launching a local news channel is they want us to be a premium subscriber benefit, like a retention tool. So if you're thinking about cutting the cord, maybe you'll keep us around a little bit longer. That's changing a little bit. So we just launched on Roku and Apple TV. You can stream Spectrum News if you have Spectrum Internet.
Oh, I do. I do.
You do? Yeah. So you can stream like our whole channel now.
I can see you and Alex Cohen?
You can. There's a smart TV app.
That?
Yes.
Is this breaking news?
It's really new. Like, we did a soft launch, and there's going to be more down the line to come to make us more accessible.
I do have Spectrum Internet because it's fast. Where I live, it's super fast. And
not my department, but always good to hear nice things.
If you see the person, say, "Hey, Tony says thanks for that 400 megabytes."
The other week, for the very first time, it had never happened to me before, I was there to interview someone when the Spectrum cable guy showed up. And it was just so funny because I was like, I'm sure there's some policy that you're absolutely not allowed to talk to the people in news. But I bet you get complaints about us and we get complaints about you. Mm-hmm. So it's always nice to hear something nice about our service.
Okay, let's just wrap up, though, on the tattooist, though. Was that the most popular story you did? Have you had more popular stories? Is there a way to figure out if it's super popular outside of your own Twitter account?
Yeah, I don't know the most popular story I've done. I mean, I know a lot of people saw that story, and, for me, consistency is key. So I just try to, especially covering the department, to just stay on it. And yeah, I mean, some stories, they take off for whatever reason. That one I was really proud of, but also, last year, just being on the campaign trail constantly and following up, because that was the main thing I learned about covering the department, was that you just have to constantly follow up, and don't stop.
They don't make it easy for you. If you ask a question, and this is a lot of sources, but I imagine definitely law enforcement and government agencies, for some reason, why do you think they are like this?
I mean, I'll tell you, with sheriffs, you don't get any documents without a lawsuit. You just don't. You just don't. Even if something is clearly public record. Well, I would say, under the former sheriff, if they thought it was politically good for him, you might get it. But across the board, it's so hard to get documents. I mean, that's why I think Knock LA is doing such great work, because they have really great First Amendment lawyers, and they get their documents at the end of the day. And that's why they're reporting stories that no one else has. And that's when I harp on when I see LA Times reporters. I'm like, hey, can you please request this? Because I know you guys have really great lawyers. And, we have lawyers at Spectrum, but that's not really their focus, isn't on doing my PRA requests, right? It's defending the company from liability.
Yeah.
So, you just don't get anything without a lawyer. Yeah.
Okay, let's continue talking about local media. Do you have any heroes or mentors or people that you look up to in the LA media world?
I mean, I'm fortunate to work with a lot of really experienced journalists. Like Alex Cohen is a great friend of mine, great mentor for me. She's texting me right now. Giselle Fernandez is our main morning anchor. Mm-hmm. She's like a local legend.
Yes.
So, I just feel really blessed to work with them. And then I don't think it's any secret that, I love Cerise Castle. She and I are also very good friends. Mm-hmm. And we've sat at many a commission hearing together. And I love Carrie Blakinger, the new reporter at the Times. Mm-hmm. I mean, anyone who's covering sheriffs, I'm like, I'm on your team. I'm like, you go.
Because you know how difficult that can be.
Yeah. And I think that, look, I mean, LAPD gets a lot of scrutiny. There's a lot of groups that focus on LAPD. They're famous. You know, like I grew up watching like LAPD Blue. Everyone knows LAPD. And the sheriffs are the same size, but
Same budget.
And they affect just as many people, maybe more people, because it's like 11 million people live in LA County and it's like 4 million in LA. So technically it's more people. And that's actually more you know, when they tell us the demographic breakdown of who watches Spectrum, most people live in the county, not actual city proper. So it's a huge influence, and they have these very opaque contracts is what I learned. And I just think that the department is there's just not enough people covering it. You know, there's more stories than any one person can do.
And now that you list it, isn't it interesting? It's almost all women who have been covering the sheriff. Eileen before Carrie at the Times, which maybe gets under their skin a little harder too, because it's like, this woman is just running me right now.
My favorite comment I got from a Villanueva fan was something like, "Kate, we're just so disappointed in you." Like,
don't you know your place? Is that what you're saying?
We had such hopes for you.
Right.
You know, you have so much potential if you could just straighten out or something. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Frank Stoltz does a great job. I loved Imperfect Paradise. I think he's on a new beat now, but I thought he did a really great job. And it really comes down, honestly, to beats, because I'd be at a press conference and, you know, it'd be like me and Aileen and Frank would really know what was going on. But then you would have like 3 other TV reporters who just got the assignment like an hour before, and they have 90 seconds to tell the story. And like, we're trying to get into the nitty gritty, like who saw the computer? Was it that guy? Wait, what about that guy over there? Can you come to the podium? You know, we're trying to get you on the record. And you just saw the difference of allowing reporters to actually have expertise, when, you know, the local model for TV stations is, like I said, you get your assignment in the morning and it's like have something on TV by 5, and you're doing something different every day, and you're getting sent all over the county on all different things, and you can never really become an expert on anything. You're just trying to jam.
You went to Annenberg at USC. Did they prepare you for this? And this isn't a diss towards USC. Could any J school prepare you for the job that you do here in LA?
Well, I would say USC was great about teaching the mechanics. They taught us, you know, they taught me how to shoot, edit, write. I laugh because I now, you know, picture myself in the computer lab for 3 days editing a 2-minute story that now I could probably, you know, finish in an hour or 2. I mean, that was really great. And I would say USC, what it did the best was toughen us up, because it had a lot of LA veterans that were like, we're going to give you frank, quick criticism while you're on deadline, even if it breaks your spirit and we see you like sobbing into the microphone as you're trying to get your
these are your professors.
Data. Yeah, the professors. But I mean, that's what real news is like.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the culture of the newsroom. So I felt really prepared for that. And my editor at the Daily Press, it was interesting because I was involved in like hiring a reporter there, and he's like, it's the daily nature that gets people. It's the everyday, the beast has to be fed. Like there's no recovery. So I felt like USC prepared us for that.
Do you feel that grind? Because I would think that that's good. Every day I get to do a new story, or every day I get to work on a 2-day story in your case. That's not a positive thing. I'd rather do that than have to do the same thing every day.
I agree. But, you know, there's also a lot of trade-offs in the business. Like, you know, we all work holidays. Like I work a crazy shift now. I work 3 a.m. to whenever, essentially. So, you know, it's definitely not for everyone. But yeah, you kind of have to have that adventure spirit, you know.
let's talk about this shift. Why are you on? Why do you have to go to work at 3 a.m.? What's the point? So that you have a piece ready at noon?
No. I anchor the 5 a.m. now. So
And is that a more prestigious hour than in the evening?
Well, so I used to anchor Sunday nights.
Okay.
So basically, I was doing 2 pieces a week, something usually timely during the week, and then we would have like a special report, like the tattoo artist story for Sunday night. But no, this was a promotion for me to move Monday through Friday.
Oh.
So
you're on every morning.
Every morning, Monday through Friday.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I anchor 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. And then usually I contribute in the later hours, which has been great because it allows me to jump on stories a lot faster. And then I work on special projects on the side. So I'm turning more like 1 piece a week because it's just, you have to schedule these stories and make time to edit. So I'm a little pickier about how I'm spending my time.
What time do you go to bed?
Well, to get 8 hours, I would have to go to bed at 6 p.m.
Is that impossible?
I mean, I also have a family. I have a 6-year-old son. I take a lot of naps. I don't know. We're still figuring it out. But I do love sleep. Like, I'm a pro. I'm not one of these people who cannot sleep. I'm like a 9-hour girl.
Oh, wow.
Like, I love my bed and my pillow.
Are parents of 6-year-olds allowed to have that hobby?
I have the best husband ever. He's very supportive. So he does bedtime. He does mornings on his own because I'm at work now. So he's incredible. And we're making it work.
So that's what it takes, everybody. Just have a great partner.
Yeah.
Who understands.
He's amazing. Yeah.
So all the people that we watch in the morning, because some of these broadcasts now are at 4 a.m. Some of these TV broadcasts.
Yeah, some people come in at 1:30.
So they're going to bed at 5 and 6 p.m.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't my first. I did this shift in Portland too. I reported on it was like a 4.5 or 5 hour morning show, and I think I had to get in at 1:30 because I was in the field. So then you have to have travel time. Like, say you're going to a city that's like 3 hours away, right? You're in the live truck in the middle of the night, like eating your bagel and putting on your mascara. And then, you come home just exhausted.
Okay, so we're talking about the neighborhood of Palms.
Oh, right.
And is Spectrum in El Segundo?
Yes.
So at 3 a.m, well, there's not traffic anywhere.
No.
So you're able to get to work pretty quickly. Is that why you picked Palms, or had you already lived over here?
No, this is where when we moved back to LA, this was in 2016, my husband was working in Century City. So a lot of people plugged Palms for us as kind of the perfect neighborhood. And we love it. I love this place.
What do you love about Palms?
Look, for me, for work, like I'm 15 minutes from Venice Beach. I'm 15 minutes from downtown if there's no traffic. I'm 15 minutes from work if there's no traffic. Of course, with traffic, all that goes out the window. But we feel like we're in the city. There's great restaurants, but it's not touristy. It's real. We can walk to downtown Culver City for dinner if we want. We spend a lot of time at the beach. We feel like that's the whole point of living in LA. It's not too hot when it's hot. We love it.
It's true. Do you ever use this Expo line over here?
When I worked in Santa Monica, I took it every day. I take it less now, sometimes on the weekend to go do fun stuff.
I ask because I love taking the subway, but then people say, well, it's different for girls. And I'm like, I can see that. Do you feel that when you're on the Expo line?
I just feel like, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to like dismiss anyone's experience, but I feel like a lot of it I just accept as city living, right? Like, look, I moved to LA when I was 18 from a town where, like in McAllen, Texas, I always tell this story. I was like standing outside a gym waiting for someone, and 3 people stopped and asked if I wanted them to wait with me so I wouldn't be by myself.
Aww.
Like, Texans, very friendly, very nice. Then I go to USC and people you have class with won't even make eye contact with you all of a sudden. And so a lot of the issues that people complain about, like they're not great, but you live in a big city. Like there's definitely going to be trade-offs, but McAllen didn't have fabulous museums and great restaurants and, a beach and all the
Right.
amenities. So it's kind of a balance.
Because now you got me thinking about Culver City. But first, let's talk about where you like to eat in Palms. There used to be a Kogi brick and mortar store in Palms. No longer?
Yeah, but the van's always parked here.
Right.
So it's kind of like they never left. They kind of had the perfect business model for the pandemic, right? They're like, oh, we'll just go back to being a food truck.
Are you a fan of Kogi?
I love Kogi, and I love the place that replaced them. Barrio is really great. That's my son's favorite restaurant, so we probably eat there at least once a week. We love Simpong Asia as really great. We're mostly vegetarians, so we eat a lot of vegan joint. All those places on National are great.
Is this the husband's influence? Because I don't know a lot of Texans who are vegans.
It was definitely a gradual thing. Like we just started cutting back a lot on eating meat, and then I stopped keeping it in the house, which actually made life easier. You didn't have to check if like the chicken was, because sometimes you're like, oh, I got to cook this because it's going to be bad or whatever. Like we don't have that problem anymore. And really, I would say the big push for us at first was climate. Like it's really big for climate. Just especially if you just stop eating cows, gets you like really far away when it comes to reducing your impact. But also health is huge too. It's it's a lot healthier.
The cows, because I heard that it takes all this water all by itself to just feed the cows, and for what? For
and then all their farts. It's terrible. It's terrible.
Should I be thinking about their farts? People talk about their farts.
Yeah, the methane.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's a problem.
Does the 6-year-old care if he doesn't have real chicken tenders?
He doesn't know any different. I mean, he's not vegetarian. He eats whatever at school. He loves pepperoni. That's his own thing. And I eat meat probably like once a week, because I don't want to be an annoying vegetarian, when I'm like, oh, I can't eat there because I don't have anything. Sorry, no offense to those people. I'm great. Good for you. You're a purist.
Yeah, some of them are annoying. It's true. I can't stop eating In-N-Out though. I use it as a reward. If I have a nice episode, if we finish it, if we do all the things and it's on time, and I happen to be passing it In-N-Out, that's the only time I really eat red meat.
Oh, well, that wouldn't be my burger of choice.
Ooh, do tell. What would?
Oh my gosh. Who has the best burger?
There's so many in LA.
I know there's so many. My favorite burger place, honestly, in the country is in Portland called Little Big Burger. Oh my gosh, they're so good. I lived in Portland for 3 years, so that was definitely my spot. But I don't think I've had a burger in LA that has tempted me. Like, I got to have this. I'm a barbecue girl. Like, oh my God, pulled pork, so good. I used to make pulled pork. Your whole kitchen just smells delicious. Oh, so good.
Is there a place in LA that has that? Like,
I'm sure.
Like Bloodso's on La Brea, maybe?
Yeah, I'm sure there's great places in LA.
But you just like to make it
barbecue.
yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't made it in years, but it sounds good just talking about it.
Okay. Then let's talk real quick about nearby Culver City. When you guys do take your stroll to Culver City, which used to be called the most livable city in LA.
Oh.
Because there's 88 cities in LA County. When you were talking about the county, there's a reason that I only do the neighborhoods. There's 300. That's enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, Culver City used to be called that. I don't know why it doesn't still. Because now it has the Expo line, and that downtown area just has so many great restaurants.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite one over there?
We go to Akasha a lot, which is great.
What's that?
It's I would say it's like American, pretty eclectic, but they have a fabulous seasonal menu, which is all about peaches right now.
Oh.
And I did eat fried chicken because I just had to have it.
Why is it? Oh, because
Delicious.
of chicken. Should we not be eating chicken either?
No, well, chicken's a lot better than cows.
Yes.
For sure.
Okay.
Where else do we go in Culver City? Ooh, let me think. I know. Now, I told you I was going to make a list of restaurants to plug, and you're like, no, you're fine.
I know, and then I just fell into it. I was like, all right,
Fell
fine.
into it. Yeah. There's a lot of great places.
Are you one of these people who, because this is how I am, I'll just walk. And if something strikes my fancy, I'll be like, let's go.
I love that.
And then I don't even really like to look at the menu. I just like to ask the waiter, what do you like? What's cool here?
Yeah.
Like, what do I know?
Yeah. What does the waiter know?
And also as journalists, that's how we get our information, is from the other people.
Right. Right.
Do you do that when you're at restaurants too?
A little bit. I would let we have a great food person on Spectrum, Jada Montemarano, and she does great stories about like the chef's story or the owner's story, and kind of explains like why certain things are on the menu. So that's always fascinating to hear. Yeah.
Let's again, thank you, Kate, for having me here.
Happy to do it. Fun talk.
This has been great.
I hope I didn't say anything that's going to get me in trouble. I don't think so.
Have you gotten in trouble?
No, never. Me?
How about at your previous jobs? Have you gotten in trouble?
No, I mean, maybe just, typical, there's always like newsroom friction over story selection or how things got done or, how things aired. But, news is a messy business, and it's very subjective.
It is. Well, the quality of the news is subjective. The news shouldn't be subjective. If it's raining, it's raining.
True,
right?
But how you decide to cover a story, who gets included, which sound bites you choose, it kind of like there's endless choose your own adventure moments, I guess, when pursuing any given story. So, sometimes you're going to have disagreements.
Let's wrap up with this then, because I don't think I've interviewed a TV journalist for this yet. And I come from blogging and then the LA Times, and it's different. Print, you worked at the Santa Monica newspaper, and now you're on Spectrum, and everybody can see you now thanks to Roku everywhere, which is awesome. Tell us about the differences between broadcast journalism and print. From your point of view, like, is it harder? Do you have to do it quicker? What's that like?
I would say when you're making a TV piece, your brain is always operating on two levels, because you're thinking about what the audience is seeing. So what visuals do I have to tell this story? And then the text that's going to be voiced underneath. So you're always thinking on two tracks, right? And the way that you would visually tell a story is very different usually than how you would write a story. So actually, I mean, the hardest thing for broadcast, and this is my weakness too, is then you have to turn around and you write the text article after, and you kind of have to, sorry, I bumped the mic. You really have to throw out the broadcast story and like recraft a text story, because it's just different. Because for TV, you're writing for the ear, and the print story is all about the depth and the details and the facts.
And you got me thinking now. I think a lot of viewers take it for granted, the entire package. So like you actually have to do like B-roll.
Yeah.
And then the voiceover. I hadn't ever thought about the voiceover before.
Yeah. So
you have to introduce it and then I guess edit the interview portion.
Yeah. So when I pitch a story, we're thinking about all the voices that are going to be involved, and then you go out and you actually do the interviews, and then you come back and then you watch back what people said, and then maybe that's when you're already starting to pull your quotes, or we would call them sound bites, that you're going to use. And then this is how I do it. Once I have that, I kind of rearrange the quotes, and then I fill out the information around them. And then you're trying to build, a narrative that's going to keep a viewer intrigued. So you're trying to think, every story that I do, I try to give it a beginning, middle, and an end. So it's just it's a totally different thought process. You have to learn to think in that way. But like if you don't have visuals for something, you can't say it. So, sometimes that's the hardest part is like, how do you, so we start with that at Spectrum, like who, every single story we do have what we would call like a central character who's like driving the narrative, who's like illustrative. Am I saying that right? Of the issue. So that person kind of eases up on the storytelling, but especially covering politics, sometimes you're like, all right, how am I going to make this visual? That's not just, the politician typing at their desk. Like we've all seen those shots. I do those shots sometimes, but yeah.
Well, you just kind of showed us an example of what's also different about TV. You have to say it perfectly.
Yeah.
Often,
Yeah.
Newspaper guys, they can sit around, they can smoke, they can drink, and then the copy editor makes it all pretty.
Oh.
Right?
Well, that'd be nice. Yeah. I don't have that. I mean, our stories get reviewed before they go on air, but we're doing all the legwork around that.
So when people watch, okay, let me wrap it up with this. I always say this is the last one, but then something else happens.
That's why your podcast is so good.
Oh, thank you. God bless you. You have a picture of Heidi Klum over here.
Hey, yes, I do.
Autographed.
Yeah, I do. That's my my husband. It was a gift in high school. But I love it. I was so vintage looking. Yeah, yeah.
How funny is that? It's kind of gone away a little bit, but the idea of fake news. And I think it had legs because he was the president of the United States saying things like this. But just that concept kind of blew my mind because being in the belly of the beast, we know what it takes to get something published or put on the air. There's oftentimes, even in small newsrooms, there's layers of people who will call BS on things and like, we cannot run that. We cannot broadcast this. And so if only people knew what it took to actually get it out there. Also, if only people knew how hard we as journalists try to be as objective as humanly possible. Even though we're humans and we have our feelings about certain things, and we might not even like the person in front of us, we might love the person in front of us. We still want to be objective because when we love the person in front of us, but they did something really bad. And that's why we've knocked on their door. I think sometimes that's harder to be objective about. You're like, and so what would be your message to people out there who maybe over the last 5 or 6 years have started to be, I don't want to say critical, but maybe they're starting to doubt the honesty of news or the objectiveness of news? What would you say to these people?
Whew. That's such a big question. I mean, building trust in news
is everything, right?
I should plug. I'm actually doing a panel next month at the Skirball about building trust in news.
Are you really?
I really am. Look, when we talk about objectivity, like the point of objectivity is that every viewer should have the opportunity to see themselves in a story or their point of view in a story, that it at least gets acknowledged. And we strive really hard to not just both sides, every side, but in the meantime, center stakeholders. And I think that that's the best way to do it because you're bringing in the humanity. Like these are the people who are actually impacted by the policies, by the law enforcement agency, by the city's failure to address homelessness. We're going to center these stories and try to air them as objectively as possible. Like I said, I try to give people agency because you're sharing your story. This is your story. This is how the world worked out for you. And I just think there's something incredibly human about that and empathetic. And I think that's the reason that, what we're doing is really resonating with people, and that, fortunately, a lot of my stories have resonated with people because we just always center it on real people. And if you can't find a real person that the story impacts, then why are you doing the story?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Kate, thank you again so much for spending time with me today.
This was super fun.
I'm so glad to hear that. And download the Roku app.
Yeah.
What was
You
the
just
other app?
Google, you just search for Spectrum News on or it's on Apple TV too.
Good.
We're on cable. You can find me on social.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that's news to me. If you don't subscribe to Spectrum, but you have the internet service,
Yeah.
then we
We
can
have an
see
app.
you.
Yeah, you can download the Spectrum News app on your phone. All our stories that go on there. You can stream us. It's great.
Thank you so much for your hard work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for doing this podcast.
How great was Kate? You know who we'd watch television with on an app for the news on our phone? Our Patreons. When you stoke us, you're saying, Tony, Jordan, you only took a month off for summer? You should have taken 2. Here's some cash so you can take some 3-day weekends going forward. So shout out to our Patreons, Nancy Rommelman, Sean Atlow, Matt Mills, Sean Wallace, Greg and Molly, Jamie Taylor, Mark Johnson, Kira Ann, Barney Grinke, Ben Welsh, Jen Adams, Trevor Wilson, Bree Wild, Dougie Gyro, Christina Up North, Robin Carey, Adam Shorn, Ben from Down Under, Chris from the ATX, and Gregor. To be a Patreon, all you got to do is go to patreon.com/hereinla and give until it hurts you. Also, shout out to our Angelinos. To be an Angelino, all you got to do is PayPal or Venmo, $25 or more, and we will list you on the Here in LA website or Medium blog forever. Special shout out to our newest Angelino, Sean Atlow. Merci beaucoup. Just send your hard-earned cash to busblog@gmail.com. Want to support us, but money in this economy? You can still help. Post your favorite episode on your Facebook. You know, anytime somebody does that, either Jordan writes me or I write Jordan, and we're just so happy. Our little hearts just warm, and it doesn't cost anything. So you know what? Post 2. We've got now 101 episodes. Just post 1 or 2 and help out the children of the world. If you want, you can tweet something nice about this. You can thread it. You can social networky it. I don't know what you can do with it. Put it on Friendster. Anytime you see me tweet about an episode, just retweet it. And for God's sakes, tell your friends. Tell them how Here in LA is spelled and that it's on Apple Podcasts and Google and Spotify and Amazon. Here in LA is produced by myself, Tony Pierce, and a man who just played pickleball with a movie star, Jordan Katz. Editing, mixing, and music supervision by Jordan Katz. Songs by Orgone and Jordan Katz. Special thanks to Cindy for creating the logo, Jen for inspiring this, and brave journalists everywhere doing the right thing for the benefit of the people. Thank you, Patriots.